Okay, so like imagine this. You're so ready to travel, excited to use all that English you've been learning, but then you accidentally tell someone, I can't wait to travel abroad instead of travel.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we've all had those moments, but they show us how important it is to learn English by actually speaking it.
Right?
And speaking of speaking English, that's what this deep dive is all about. You want to get better at English with podcasts.
Yeah.
And we found some great tips from experts to help you do just that.
It's really cool, actually. Our main source for this deep dive is a podcast. And get this, it teaches English by talking about learning English.
The meta, right?
It's like we get a sneak peek behind the scenes of how to become fluent.
Exactly. So let's jump right in. Why are podcasts such a good way to learn English? The source talked a lot about flexibility.
Yeah, flexibility is huge. It's all about fitting learning into your day, like while you're commuting or doing chores.
Even working out.
Yeah, learning on the go.
Exactly. No textbooks needed. And what's great is you're hearing real English, like how people actually talk, not that stiff textbook stuff.
Right. It's like you're listening in on a conversation between native speakers.
Picking up on all those little things that make your English sound more natural.
The idioms, huh?
Uh-huh. And something I found really interesting is the variety of podcasts out there.
Oh, yeah.
Like whatever you're into, there's a podcast for it. Tech, fashion, you name it.
True crime.
Business.
Anything.
You can totally immerse yourself in a topic you love and improve your English at the same time.
It's a win-win.
Totally. Now, we know just passively listening isn't enough. You got to be active.
Right.
What are some good listening strategies from our source?
Well, they say choosing the right podcast for your level is really important.
Makes sense.
Like if you're a beginner, maybe go for a slower paced show made for learners.
Right.
But if you're more advanced, go for something you really like,
Yeah, find that sweet spot.
where you're challenged but not totally lost.
Exactly. So you've found the right podcast. What are some ways to really make the most of it?
They suggest a few things.
Okay.
One is taking notes, jot down new words and phrases you hear.
Yeah.
Another is pausing and repeating. Like really focus on how the words sound.
No pronunciation and all that.
Exactly. And then try to really engage with what you're hearing. Like how would you respond in a similar conversation?
So it's about making it an interactive experience, not just background noise.
Exactly. And they see one of the best techniques is called shadowing.
Oh, shadowing.
Yeah, it's like karaoke, but for conversations.
I like that.
You listen and then try to copy what the speaker's saying.
Their pronunciation, intonation, everything.
Everything.
Yeah,
It might feel a little weird at first,
sure.
but it helps you get used to the rhythm of English and sound more fluent.
I love that analogy. It makes shadowing sound way more fun.
It is fun.
But let's be honest, sometimes you listen to a podcast and you think you get it,
Yeah.
but then it's like, poof, gone. And the source talks about that. They stress the importance of reviewing.
Oh, yeah. Don't just listen once and move on.
Right.
Go back to parts you found tricky, look over your notes, really make sure you understand it,
So it's like building a solid foundation.
brick by brick.
Yeah. Now, I know some people are thinking, okay, I get the theory, but how does this work in real life?
Right.
And our source uses the example of booking a hotel.
Yeah, to show how you can actually use what you learn from podcasts.
It's so helpful. Like, imagine listening to a travel podcast and they're talking about booking a room. You'll hear phrases like, is there a vacancy for tonight? Or, could I get a room with a view?
Exactly. It's like they're giving you a script for your next vacation.
And what's cool is you'll pick up those little expressions that you wouldn't find in a textbook, like hit the road.
Yes.
It's those idioms that really make your English sound more natural and interesting.
And, it shows you're not just learning words, but how native speakers actually use them
Totally.
in everyday conversations.
Exactly. So we've talked about why podcasts are great and how to listen to them effectively.
Yeah.
But what about those times when you're listening and you feel totally lost?
Right, like you're missing half the words.
Yeah, exactly. It can be really discouraging, especially when you're just starting out.
Oh, yeah.
What does our source say about that?
Well, they say the most important thing is not to get hung up on every single word.
Oh, okay.
Like, don't worry if you don't understand everything.
So it's more about getting the general idea.
Yeah, the gist of the conversation.
Right.
Think of it like watching a movie with subtitles.
Mm.
Even if you miss a few words, you can still follow the story.
That's a good point.
And over time, your ear will get used to the sounds of English, and those words will start to become clearer.
So you're saying it's like anything else, the more you practice, the better you get.
Exactly.
Our source also mentioned transcripts as a helpful tool.
Transcripts are super useful, especially for visual learners.
Yeah, because you can read along as you listen.
Right, it's like having subtitles for the audio.
It's a great way to make sure you're understanding everything.
And it can be really helpful for checking your comprehension.
I think it's also important to remember that learning a language takes time.
Oh, definitely.
You can't expect to become fluent overnight.
It's a process.
What does the source say about setting realistic goals?
They say don't try to do too much at once.
Like, don't try to listen to hours and hours of podcasts every day.
Right. Start with shorter episodes, maybe just 15 or 20 minutes.
Okay.
And gradually increase the time as you get better.
So it's about consistency, not intensity.
Exactly. It's like training for a marathon. You wouldn't start by running 26 miles on your first day.
That's a good way to put it.
You build up your endurance gradually.
And just like a runner enjoys the process of training, language learners should find joy in the journey of learning.
Absolutely. Like discovering new words, understanding grammar, and getting more comfortable speaking.
So we've covered a lot here. The benefits of podcasts, how to listen actively, how to use them in real life, and even how to overcome challenges.
Yeah, we've talked about a lot.
What do you think is the key takeaway for our listeners?
You know, it's interesting because the podcast we've been talking about actually uses all these techniques itself.
Oh, wow.
It's a perfect example of how effective this approach to language learning can be.
So they're not just telling us how to do it, they're actually doing it.
Right. It makes their message even more believable.
They're living proof that learning English with podcasts can be fun and successful.
Exactly.
So for our listeners who want to try this out, what's the best advice we can give them?
I would say find a podcast that you really love, something that makes you want to keep listening.
Oh, okay.
Because when you're genuinely interested in what you're hearing, the learning happens naturally.
Yeah, it's like when people say, find a job you love and you'll never work a day in your life.
Right.
Find something you're passionate about and it doesn't feel like work. It's the same with language learning. The more you enjoy it, the easier it is. And that brings us to our final thought for today. We've been talking about finding podcasts that match your interests.
Right.
But let's go even deeper.
Okay.
What are you really, truly passionate about? What makes you excited to learn?
Yeah.
Is it history, science?
Music.
And maybe it's something totally different, like learning about ants.
Oh, wow.
Or the history of cheese.
That's interesting.
Whatever it is, that's where the real learning happens.
Because when you're learning about something you love, you're more likely to stick with it.
It's like you're not even trying, it just comes naturally.
Exactly. And you're way more motivated.
So to wrap up today's deep dive, I encourage you to go out there and explore the world of podcasts.
Yeah.
Find something that speaks to you.
Something you're curious about.
And watch your English skills grow. Every new word you learn, every idiom you master, every conversation you have in English, it's all a step closer to fluency.
Keep listening, keep practicing, and most importantly, keep having fun.
Because when you enjoy the journey, the destination is that much sweeter.
I like that.
That's it for our deep dive into learning English with podcasts. We hope you got some good tips and feel inspired to subscribe to a podcast that interests you.
And remember, language is constantly changing, so stay curious and never stop learning.
Until next time, happy listening.